When people do a search for how to get a bigger bicep, it's only because they're unaware that the bicep makes up just a small part of the arm. Look how hilarious this would be if you just trained the bicep. Your tricep is virtually non-existent, your delt is flat. You want a bigger arm, not just a bigger bicep. And this is what we want. For the most part, no one really wants a bigger bicep. They want bigger arms, which means a bigger delt, which also means a bigger tricep. See? That's way more aesthetically pleasing and it's way more functional. If you train the whole arm, you get stronger at your pushing and your pulling movements, as well as building up the forearm there, which is required to just hold the dumbbells. So what we want is a bigger arm, not just a bigger bicep. So let's go over that. All right, we've established that building a bigger arm is the priority, not just a bigger bicep. So when we're talking about the arms, we're talking about three main muscles, and we're just going to simplify the crap out of this and talk about just those three main muscle groups today. We have the delt right up here, otherwise known as the shoulder. We have the tricep right down here, and we have the bicep right here. Those are the muscles we're going to talk about today. And maybe in a later video, we'll talk about the pectoral, the latissimus dorsi, and the trap muscle. But for today, let's just talk about the biceps, the triceps, and the shoulders. Just for your knowledge, tri means three, just like a tricycle means 3 tires. And bi means 2, just like a bicycle means 2 tires. Wheels, sorry, not tires. I think you get the point though. Let's talk about the triceps real quick. Triceps, we're talking about 3 muscle groups. We have the lateral head on the outside. This is looking at somebody from the back. This is the scapula right here, and this is the humerus right here. Not that you need to know that, but just in case. We have the lateral side of the tricep, which is right there. We have the long head of the tricep, which is right here. And then the third muscle in the tricep is going to be the medial, and that's going to be underneath these two, actually. All 3 are going to be right here. The tricep is responsible for an extension or moving the wrist away from the shoulder, not just in isolation though, also in compound movements. Anytime you do a push, you're using the tricep. You can push down in the form of a dip that uses a tricep. You can press here from the chest, like a bench press, that uses tricep. You can press up like a shoulder press, that also uses triceps. But we're going to talk about isolating today, not compound movements, when it comes to actually building the size of the arms. Next, we're going to talk about the bicep here. This is looking at someone from the front. So let's just draw a little nipple here. Just see, we're looking at this guy from the front. Biceps are 2 muscles, like we discussed earlier. We have the short head of the bicep right here. And then we have the long head of the bicep outside here. The bicep is responsible for bringing the wrists in closer to the shoulders, regardless of the position of your wrist, if it's supinated or pronated. It doesn't really matter. This is what the bicep does, but it doesn't just do this in isolation. Just like the tricep, the bicep is responsible for compound movements as well. Any pulling motion is going to use the bicep, whether we're doing a pull-up or a chest row or a standing row. Those are all going to use biceps. So pulling at any angle uses the bicep. Extending at any angle uses the tricep. Next, we're going to talk about the delts. Now we're going to talk about the deltoid. If you're looking at somebody from the side, just like this, you're going to have 3 main parts of your deltoid. You're going to have the anterior, which is the front of your delt, right here. Makes up this rounded part of the front. We have the posterior, and when thinking about posterior, think about posture and posterior. It all means back or rear. So the posterior delt is on the back side right here. And then we have the biggest part of the delt, which is the part you see when you're flexing. This top right here is the medial delt, and that's the main one we're going to focus on talking about today, and that's going to come make this roundedness in your shoulder. So when you're looking at somebody from the front, the part that sticks out on the sides like that is the medial delt, and that's the one that's responsible for doing this. We can talk about the posterior delt, which is responsible for pulling or extending the arm back, and the anterior delt, which is responsible for raising the arm up in this motion or pushing the arm forward in this motion. But we're going to simplify the crap out of this arm workout by just talking about here and this motion here. So let's get to the exercises you're going to use to build bigger arms. We're going to talk about 3 main movements: the bicep curl, the skull crusher, and the shoulder fly. Those are going to be the 3 main muscle groups you're going to focus on when talking about building up the size of your arms. Those are very simple things to talk about, but there are a couple nuances to mention. And there's also a bunch of stuff to just forget about, because you're going to find all kinds of complicated videos about how to turn the wrist this way when you curl up and then turn it back this way when you turn down, or do I do a hammer curl or regular curl, and blah. The list goes on and on. But if you found this video because you're legitimately interested in getting bigger arms, then guess what? You need to keep it very basic in the beginning, and you need to adapt to the training by growing bigger muscles. And then if you hit a plateau and you need some more complicated crap, go for it. But in the beginning, it's very simple. The bicep, like we talked about, is going to be the muscle that does this right here, is what we're talking about. When grabbing a dumbbell, you're going to grab with your pinky touching all the way on this side. And that's important because that's going to weigh the dumbbell down here, and that's going to unwind the bicep so that it can be fully flexed and engaged. Now, what's important to mention is this motion right here needs to come from the point where the elbows are braced on the side. What we don't want to do is pull the elbows back as we curl or bring the elbows forward as we curl. The elbows should be frozen on the side so we can properly isolate that muscle as we're pulling up into this position. We also want to avoid using any body English to pull these weights up for us. We want to let the bicep do the curl. We don't want to use some sort of flexion in the hips in order to get these up. So the body is a statue, and the only thing that's moving is the arms. Now I'm going to talk about this with the bicep curls, but it also applies to the tricep extensions and the shoulder flies. When focusing on hypertrophy, which is increasing the size of the muscle, the negative part of the contraction, or the lowering, needs to be slower than the positive part of the contraction, which is the raising. So if I'm curling up into this position, elbows are locked on the side, the body's a statue, I'm going to go up fast, down slow, up fast, down slow, up fast, down slow. And the main reason for that is because the eccentric, or the negative part of the contraction, builds more muscle than the positive or the concentric part of the contraction. So just think about it that way. Going down slower and up faster builds more muscle. All right, now it's time to talk about some shoulder flies. From this position here, we want to learn that range isn't necessary to build the delta. We don't need to go overhead with the hand here. As a matter of fact, we don't even need to go to a position that puts the arms in line. Every time I do shoulder flies, I only pull up to about this position right here. That's all I'm trying to do. And remember, when building muscle, positive is fast, negative is slow. Positive is fast, negative is slow. We want to avoid the temptation to do a little hop to get these dumbbells up, or to do one arm at a time and swing the body out this way. We want to keep it bilaterally even and pull these up at the same time to the same level, going up fast, going down slow, up fast, down slow. Use a weight that's going to allow you to do that without any cheating or body English. The last one we're going to talk about is a skull crusher. You're going to put dumbbells together. You're going to reach down with good posture. That means chest is out as far as you can on your back with these dumbbells. You're going to extend them up fast, lower them slow. Reach down, extend up fast, lower slow. Extend, lower, slow. Extend fast, lower, slow. Always reaching all the way down on your back and stretching these out. Try to have good posture here. You'll avoid hitting your head if you have good posture, if you're not rounded. And at the same time, we don't want any of this body English. We want to let the triceps do the work. Up fast, down slow. The next thing to talk about is adequate range of motion. And although I went over that with the 3 movements, I just want to solidify this real quick so that it's crystal clear. You've got to choose a weight that lets you fully extend and stretch the bicep at the bottom every time you come down. And it's important. If the weight is too heavy and you go all the way down and then you all of a sudden can't make it back up, and you do that too early in the rep range, you're going to miss out on some growth. The same goes for the shoulder flies. If you're only pulling up to here because the weights are too heavy, we're not going to get a full flexation of the shoulder. So we're going to miss out on some growth. And the same goes for the tricep extension or the skull crusher. So in this position, we need to be able to reach down on the back. If you pick a weight that's so heavy that you get full range on the back and all of a sudden you can't pull these up, then you need a lighter weight that allows you to go through the rep range for proper activation of the triceps. So what are the sets? What are the reps? That's the next thing we're going to talk about. Now, if you've watched the video up until this point, you probably have some questions like, How many reps? How many sets? How much rest in between sets? And then what's the frequency? How many days a week can I do this program? Well, let's answer those all for you, and let's go over some other terminology as well. What is a superset? A superset is when you go from one movement to the next without rest until you've completed all of the movements. And in this case, we're talking about curls, flies, and skull crushers. So you would do all your curls, all your flies, all your skull crushers, then you would take a rest, and that is a superset. And supersets save time. Imagine going your curls, take a rest, more curls, etc. until you're done with all the sets. Then you move on to delts for your flies. Then you move on to triceps for your skull crushers. That's going to take a long time. And there's no added benefit to separating. So why not just do a superset and save yourself some time? So that's what we're going to talk about doing today. You would do your curls, your fly, your skull crushers all back to back. Then you would take a rest. How many sets? Well, that's going to be up to the individual, but I like to get a good warm up in. So the first 3 sets are going to be just to warm the muscles up. How many reps for those first 3? 20 reps is great. And that should be a weight that's relatively easy to do 20 times. But you shouldn't pick a weight that you can do 40 times. It should be an easy 20, but a hard 40. You'll dial it in though. Don't overcomplicate it or overthink it too much. And then once we get into the working sets, it's going to be 12 reps. Now notice the rest changes. We have a 30-second rest in between each of the warm-up sets, and then we have a 90-second rest in between the working sets. Now, what's the barrier here? So this barrier here describes these first 3 are a warm-up. This barrier here is once you get advanced, you can add on a couple more sets, but 3 working sets in the beginning is all you really need to grow. Once you start to adapt to that, then you can add in these 2 extra sets. This is exactly how you would write this down in a notebook when you're at the gym. And tracking your numbers is crucial. You want to see your progressive overload, your linear progression as you're moving through your training. You want to know that you are actually building up your muscles. And here's how you would do that. You're probably going to need a different weight for your curl, for your fly, and for your skull crushers. Your tricep is going to be the heavier or the stronger muscle in the group of 3 muscles here. You'll probably need a heavier weight for this one. You'll probably need your lightest weight for your shoulder flies, and then your second heaviest weight for your curls. I can't tell you what to use here. I'm not you. You got to experiment. So your curls, this is where you would track the pounds going forward. Let's say for your warm-up, that's going to be 10 pounds for your curls on each, and 8 pounds for your flies on each, and 15 pounds for your skull crushers on each of the 3 warm-ups. Who knows? This might work for you, this might not. And then we actually get into the working sets, 12. What does the 12 mean? That's another question. Well, we have to get within 2 reps of failure to optimize growth. Now, that being said, once you get more advanced, make sure that you're failing, meaning you could not get that 12th rep. That 12th rep is a full extension, but it's not full range because you just can't make it happen at the top. Or a fly or a skull crusher, it's the same thing. That 12th rep needs to be a rep that you cannot complete the full range of motion. That way you know that that 12th rep is failure and you're getting the most out of it. But in the beginning though, your 12th rep needs to be something that you feel like you couldn't get 13 of. So that's going to put you safely within the 2 reps to failure sort of situation. So muscular failure is whenever you cannot get full range of motion on the movement. If you get within 2 reps of that, you're going to stimulate muscle growth. Once you become advanced, you want to fail. You want actually your 12th rep to be a rep that you cannot complete for sure. And so this weight that you use for the curl, for the fly, for the skull crusher, that might actually change as you go through your sets. You might be stronger in the beginning and then weaker as you go through. And that's fine too. So what you would do is you'd have 3 different dumbbells right by you. You'd pick one up for the curl, pick another one up for the fly, pick another setup for the tricep extensions, and experiment with this. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time you do it. So it's all about experimenting and finding the right weight that's going to work for you. Now let's talk about frequency. When you first start doing this program, you can do this 1 or 2 days a week. As you begin to adapt to it and your muscles start to get bigger, you can actually add a 3rd day in there. optimal hypertrophy training, which hypertrophy is a term that means increasing the size of the muscle, is going to happen 3 days a week for any given muscle group. So you can do this workout 3 days a week once you adapt to it and once you're a little more advanced. I think we covered pretty much everything here. We covered the muscles, we covered the exercises, we covered the sets, the reps, the weight, what a superset is, and we went through the whole training protocol here of how to actually record your sessions. Now it's up to you. Get your hands on some dumbbells, practice these movements, get a good warm up in for 3 sets, and then get 3 working sets in. And once you start to get advanced, you can add in a couple more sets at the end. But that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you got something out of this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, share this with your friends, and I'll see you guys next time.